My name is Bob Wilson, and I am a docent here at the San Luis Obispo Railroad Museum. What we're doing here today is this gentleman here is named Richard Nakano, and he came in a while back and shared some things with us that we wanted to video to make a permanent record of. It's about a month ago, Mr. Nakano came into the museum and he related to me his childhood that he had spent at the surf depot on the Southern Pacific coastline in the mid 1950s and some of the things that went on. And in particular, what really got me was he described going over to the old depot, which is now long gone, and there was a telephone pole there, and there was a wire hanging off that telephone pole. And he would grab a hold of it and run like crazy down the platform and jump off and swing out over around the track and then come back and land on the depot platform. And so my comment to him was, I said, well, that's pretty cool. You know what? The modelers upstairs have modeled that, and I wonder if they included all that detail. Well, we go up there and lo and behold, they did. So what did you think about that?
Oh, it was great simply because, again, I've said before, my memory has always been the best thing in my life, but it was a, a, a verification that everything I was saying was true, and that people that didn't even know me put this and assembled this design, this layout that was quite accurate, and it gave me a good feeling to know that uh, I had some verification that what happened to me at that time was right there where I could reach out and touch this display. I really thought it was great.
Yeah,
It was
that's
great.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you didn't really show a lot of emotion
No.
when I first took you up there, but and so to me this is like vindication. I don't work on the model up there. I've got my
Hmm.
own layout at home, but I don't work on theirs because what they do is totally different from what I do.
Right.
Now I've done a lot of work out here and out there on the platform, but still, we all are in this thing pulling together here at the museum,
Hmm.
and to provide you with that experience to me is absolute. It's amazing, and it's vindication of the work that goes into it.
Right.
And so now, so tell the story again about you. Did I give it justice where you're up there hanging off that wire and you go running down the platform? Is that pretty accurate about
Yes,
how it went?
that's very accurate. I one day was playing around at the depot, and I saw this wire hanging from this telephone line, and so I just grabbed it and ran from the back of the platform out, off, around, over the track, and back to the front of of the 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 stage or the palladium or whatever you call it. And yeah,
How high off the ground were you?
I think that thing was about anywhere from 3 to 4 feet. Yeah, because it was lined up so that when the boxcars pulled up, you could load them straight across. So they were pretty high up.
And you didn't worry about the wire breaking or
No,
getting knocked out, landing on the tracks, and a train hitting you or anything like that?
no. As a kid, you'd no.
How old were you then? You figure?
I would figure I was about 7 to 8. Yeah,
I'll be darned.
yeah.
And did you know the guys in the depot? You got pretty friendly with them, right?
Uh, yeah. I would know them by sight, but I never got to sit down and talk with them. They were always busy.
Yeah. But you watched them send out train orders on the
Yes,
hoops and all that
yes,
stuff.
yes.
And do you have a recollection of steam in at Surf?
At Steam?
Yeah, steam powered locomotives.
No, actually, that memory was in Nebraska because I was born in Nebraska.
Oh,
So, and when the family broke up, we moved to literally to the other side of the tracks, and the train yard was there.
yeah.
So
In Nebraska.
I would hang out there. Yeah,
Yeah. I'll
yeah.
be darned.
That's where the train um, came into my life at that time because
Yeah.
it was my source of entertainment, and plus I was, yeah,
Go on, kid. Go out there and play in the tracks.
exactly, exactly. We didn't have a freeway, you know, you know,
Well,
hang
that's
on to the fence. No,
yeah.
but
That's
yeah,
not good, but
but you know, that's life. But yeah, and I used to watch the sand coming out onto the tracks so they could get traction on the wheels, the steam, the coal being loaded, the water being, you know, transferred into the locomotive.
you know
Yeah.
this qualifies you as a very lucky man.
Oh, I think there's a reason for that. I just, yeah, there's things that I kind of wonder, hmm, that's odd, you know, but I just kept doing it, you know. It was fun.
So how did you guys go end up from going from Nebraska all the way to California? And
Okay, my siblings were born in California, in Lompoc, and my mother came from Mexico when she was 1 year old, and she came to Lompoc. So they're already familiar with that, and so um, when things kind of went south, we went west, no, to Lompoc, California, and we did migrant work and things like that, like most newcomers do.
yeah,
And then we ended up moving to surf, and that's when I got reacquainted with trains and tracks and all that
right,
stuff.
yeah. Of course, by then it was pretty well dieselized,
Oh
correct?
yeah,
Yeah,
I was like, "Where's the steam?" You know,
yeah,
the big
yeah,
bell ringing on top.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I was here the other day, and a gentleman came in and rang the bell in the back of the room there,
Yes.
and I went, "What?" You know, it was an old friend. You know, I thought, "Wow," you know. But yeah, I enjoyed all that stuff, watching all that stuff.
So you guys moved back to Lompoc
Yeah,
in, you figure what, 50,
we moved back to well, they moved back to Lompoc. That was my first time in '53.
53?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we spent about a year in Lompoc running around like gypsies, house to house, and then we ended up going to surf.
Okay.
And
And then initially, did you guys live in the house at Surf that
yes,
you drew on the map?
yes, we lived in the house next to Jim Galanos, who was he was I think the section foreman uh, for that area,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he had a group of guys that worked for him that repaired the tracks and stuff,
Interesting.
and we got involved in that, you know. And
And you, that was a Southern Pacific owned house, you
yes,
think?
yes,
Was it
all that property was Southern Pacific owned. Yeah,
interesting? Yeah.
yeah.
Until the government got it yeah.
Yes, they did.
But that's another story.
Yeah,
We'll get to that in a minute.
yeah.
So now, how would you describe the accommodations, that house? Was it in pretty good shape, or was it, just a tiny little cracker box and drafty? You look out, you see the sun coming in through, boards and stuff, or
No, it was livable. There was no issues whatsoever, other than you had to go outside to use the bathrooms and go get coal and chop wood because we had wooden stoves and stuff like that.
interesting. Did you cook on wood stoves?
Yeah, my mom was great at it. I don't know how she did it. She just moved things around and kept from burning things. And
I'll be darned.
yeah,
And so you would walk across the street to the coal bin at the far end of the depot.
hmm
And so that coal was obviously not there for locomotives, it was there for
yeah,
cabooses and for use of employees.
right, exactly, for our
Interesting.
stoves and
Interesting.
our heater and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, yeah.
But you had an external latrine, a latrine outside of the house.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything was outside.
And no bathtub, shower, or anything like that?
Shower.
You had a
Shower.
shower in there,
Yeah.
yeah. And then like wallpaper inside type of
Oh
thing?
no. It
No?
was
Just,
that was it. You just went out there to get clean, not look pretty.
Yeah, I'll be darned.
Yeah.
So, and then later on, then there were three boxcars over there. Our modelers have only shown two. Andrew Merriam, the head of the Central Coast Model Railroad, our railroad here at the museum, has indicated that he knows what those boxcars look like, and they're not actually correct on our layout in that they don't have windows and stuff in them.
They don't. The models don't have windows. These box cars were taken off the wheels and placed next to the tracks, and I mean next to the tracks. Uh, but yeah, and that made it also convenient for us to be able to get in and out. And they kind of redid the insides to make like little compartments, like little rooms.
Yeah.
There was only like three in my mom's uh, boxcar. We had two rooms, and my older brothers, shared one room, and I got the empty part on the floor. But
Weren't
that's
you
okay.
lucky?
That's fine. I wasn't bothered by that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I had a little pet squirrel, so he got to run around in there.
Yeah, you were talking
Yeah.
about that, and I thought that was totally cool,
Yeah.
and you had them for years.
Yeah, I did. I did. I found him as a little peanut that was left behind because he was a runt, and the runts usually get eaten or left behind. So, knowing that feeling, I put him under my socket and took him home, and we took the fleas off him with one of those little Cracker Jack uh, little things that you'd measure or look through, and a pair of tweezers, and we defleased them and gave him little milk and old bread and stuff, and he came out of it. So I thought, oh,
That's totally cool.
yeah.
That's totally cool. Yeah.
So yeah,
So when you moved into the boxcar,
Right.
do you have any idea? Did you pay rent to Southern Pacific, or
I
they
don't.
just kind of?
I don't believe so. I've never heard any discussion about rent. I think when you worked for Southern Pacific, I believe that was part of working for Southern Pacific. They provided housing, I believe.
But and so the connection is that your brother worked for Southern Pacific.
Yes, he also, when he graduated from Lompoc High, he came to work for Jim Galano's. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And what did he do for the railroad?
He was just what you would call a lineman, or he'd repair the section. He was part of what they call the section gang.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what he did. Eventually, he was chosen to become a foreman, but things started to happen, and we ended up elsewhere. But what happened, how we got from the house to the boxcars, is that we left to visit family in LA, and when we came back, I don't know, but we ended up living at the southern end of Surf, and that was the boxcars.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so your brother, was he still staying with you in the boxcar at that time?
Yeah, he was still about ready to complete his schooling.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he was there. And but my sister had left in '56 to come and live in Santa Barbara.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what year is it approximately that you guys lived in that boxcar?
We lived there in '56 to '57.
Uh-huh. And was there a lot of traffic on the coastline at that time? A lot of rail traffic?
Yes, there was
Yeah.
a lot of traffic because you had freight trains. And then when we would go to LA, we would take the mail train, which had a little car at the very end of the mail train for passengers, and that's what we would travel around.
Explain that car, because you did mention that, and I'm glad you did, because this is something I wanted to talk to you about, or get on, because I thought that was completely fascinating. Now, did you have to, on some railroads, you would literally flag the train down Otherwise, they would roll right through. Or was it a scheduled stop
It
there
was a
at Surf?
scheduled stop at Surf because, again, it was the mail train.
I'll be darned.
And so when it would stop, we would get on at the very end and ride in the back all the way to LA, and it took 4 hours.
That's it?
Yeah,
Man,
yeah.
I would think it would be a lot more because there'd be a lot more stops in that.
Uh, yeah, but I guess people didn't write much. I don't know. I don't know. But 4 hours would be a general, not unless something went wrong. But
Yeah, yeah.
generally 4 hours.
And then how were the accommodations in that car?
You pretty much took a sack lunch and water. They just you were just being moved. You know,
Were the chairs comfortable or were they wood? Were they have any upholstery on them? Do
kind
you
of
remember?
kind of like the ones you have here.
Well, those are deluxe.
Yeah, those are nice.
yeah.
But yeah, no, they're just regular seats. Just to get us back and forth.
And were there a lot of people on that car?
Not necessarily. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Now, I don't expect you to. Do you know the car we have out here is a quote heavyweight car?
Hmm.
And is it your recollection it had a similar style where it had the roofs that curved down on the end and such?
They did curve. I mean, top was round, but no, it wasn't. Didn't look as pretty as these.
Yeah, well, of course, yeah, these guys just got, that's a
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, but
long-term
no,
labor of love.
yeah, no, these are really nice.
Was it wooden or steel? Do you have any
It was
recollection?
steel.
Oh, it was a steel car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
And then you guys ended up, you left Surf.
Well, what happened not by choice. One day we were waiting for the bus up at the top of the road there, um, and I was at 246, I think was part of the 246 highway. Um, we were waiting for our bus, and I noticed there was fencing going up and barbed wire and a little guard shack. So being half Japanese, I thought, oh, what do we do now? But no, it wasn't that. I thought we're getting relocated again. I Camp Cook was being replaced by Vandenberg, NASA, and the government said we don't want anybody here, so they dispersed us, and the only thing they kept there was the depot and the guys that worked there, which I think there was like 3 of them that worked there, around the clock. And so we got displaced and ended up in San Luis Obispo County in a little place called Edna.
Right.
Yeah. And when we moved there, oh boy, we lived in these houses made out of railroad ties, the same ties that we used to put on the track. And then they stuffed cement in there. And of course, if the cement fell out, I'd wake up with little critters running across me.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, well,
Weren't you lucky?
not everybody can live in a zoo. No, so anyway, yeah, I just took it as it come because I think the age factor and the fact that if you're not aware of difference, it's the norm. So
Yeah, you just accept it.
yeah,
You just accept
I
it.
got to the point where I'd go out to take showers outside and in these little nothing places, and I'd drop the cotton picking soap, and I'd reach down with my eyes with soap in it, and I'd pick something up, start going like this, and it'd make a little noise, and I'd look, and oh, it's a frog, so I had to put him down, find the soap. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I really did. It was probably not good for my brothers and sister who were older and had different needs, but for me, it was great.
Now, when you were at Surf
Hmm.
and Vandenberg was coming in, the story that I've heard is across from the depot, they built what is, in essence, a bomb shelter.
Yeah.
Was that there when you lived there?
No, no, no,
No.
no,
Okay.
no. There has been people that work out there that, like yourself, where you talk to people about things, that I kind of had to take aside and say, no, it wasn't the war. You know, yes, there was a shelter built about, maybe 10 yards, 15, or yeah, about 10 yards away from the depot on the side of a sand dune. And I believe it might have been something of a chamber or something that they put in there, and they used that as a shelter because when NASA's early days were shoot off missiles, they didn't go straight up. So they would call the guys down at the station to go like, you better get in the shelter. So it's quite small to accommodate just one, well, two guys, three guys, best,
Yes.
to go in there until they figured out how to get the missiles to go straight.
Yes.
Yeah, so that came after I was gone. Otherwise, I would have made it a clubhouse.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You'd be down there
yeah,
playing around, and they'd say, "Hey, kid,
absolutely.
get out of
Yeah,
here.
I could
You're
swing around the
expendable."
pole and go right to the little shelter.
Yeah.
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 No.
So there were other things that you were telling me about, and I can't remember what they are. So I've been leading the
Oh, okay,
witness all this
right,
time,
and
more
that's
or
a good
less.
thing because I'm not a kid anymore. Yeah, we had incidents where I would come across somebody that jumped off the train incorrectly and they ended up punching a hole in their hand, and
Yeah, absolutely.
I would find them because my dog would be barking. It'd be late at night, so I'd take my little hot poker from the pot belly stove and walk out there. Who is it? And I'd find people and I'd bring them back to an area that was lit and had heat and stuff outside. And then my mom would come out and go, "Now what?" And
What'd
I,
you bring home this time?
yeah, exactly. I was forever doing that. And we tended to him. She sewed him up, you know, and we got the guy, straightened out, cleaned him up, let him sleep, gave him a little something to eat. We didn't have too much. I could never figure out why she was giving people food. I go, Mom, what are we gonna eat? Don't worry. But that was just her nature. Then one time when we lived at the boxcar side, uh, I was walking by, and I walked right next to the tracks, and my favorite thing was to pull the little air brake handle to release the air because I'm trying to get my dog all excited. And when I did that, I heard kind of a thumping sound in the box, and I was like, so my dog started barking again. So I kept listening, so I ran home, and I told my mom, I says, I think there's somebody in there. And what it was a box car that was dropped off days ago, for whatever reason, on its own, and there was three guys in it. And when they dislodged the train from that box car, the door slid shut and locked. And so I never thought about it. And then just because I was walking by a couple of the days later and pulled his handle, that they heard it and tried to motion that they were in there. So when we got the axe out, we went back there and finally got the door swung open. We found these three guys that were, oof, oof, pretty ripe. But we got them out, cleaned them up, fed them, and gave them a little something, something, and sent them on their merry way.
And did they wait for another freight to come, and they'd run and they'd hop the freight again,
Oh
or
no,
what?
they weren't in running condition. They
Yeah.
no, but they did go down the track, and I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
I'm sure they did. I watched them as far as I could go, and I learned how to get off and get on trains, go under trains. Yeah.
Riding the train to school.
Right,
Gotta
yeah,
get right to
right,
school.
riding the train to school because I'd make my brothers late and we'd miss the bus, so we'd catch the caboose, ride it into Lompoc, the station was located at one end of this block, and the caboose lined up with my elementary school. And I would fight and fuss with my brothers and made them late for their school, which was across town. And then I'd sneak out from underneath the pepper trees and go underneath the trains and find the one that was going back out to surf.
Don't try this at home, people.
That's right.
Okay, now you say that you rode in the caboose?
Yes.
So the crews would invite you on board, and they knew that.
They knew how cute I was. Yeah, they knew who I was, and my brothers especially.
That's amazing.
And yeah, the community, the railroad community itself, uh, is very tight because there was very few of us out there.
Yes.
Maybe like 6 families, maybe, and that's about it. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So you depended on each other.
Yeah. Well, you know, the Southern Pacific always billed itself in those days as the friendly railroad. You know, and so
Well, they
what
were.
you. Yeah, and what you're kind of giving us here is confirmation of that.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, in the 50s, the Southern Pacific was a very prosperous road yet. You know, it wasn't until into the late 80s, early 90s that they got into financial trouble, which ultimately led to their sale. But the point is that you had mentioned to me about you and your friend. Tell us about your friend.
Oh, yeah,
and
my little buddy that had polio. We lived on the corner of Laurel and J Street in Lompoc, and uh, and he was my little neighbor, and we would hang out together. Became best of pals, and we'd go to the corner and watch the train go by, and the engineer would honk and wave at us, and that was a lot of fun. And then one day he kind of tossed this little packet out to us. You know, we didn't know what it was, and waved to us. And so I went over there and got the packet, and Johnny and I opened it up, and it was a pair of 3D glasses and 3D cards. And I wrote about that because he didn't know. Okay, he didn't know that for us little, I called us ragmuffins, uh, how special he made us feel, you know, that we were somebody.
yeah,
You know.
that's amazing. That's amazing.
And I always remember, I always got kindness from strangers instead of where you should get it from.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that meant a lot to both of us. And we were tickled pink. My turn, my turn. You know, we'd fight over it. You know. But yeah, and in Nebraska, before I came to California, and I played in the yard there and watched all these things going on, and then the engineer would go. They'd all go, no, 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 you got to get back, you know. So until they could see that I was safe because they were so high up, they would ring the bell and the steam would come out and the sand would come out, and they'd wave to me, and I used to. And at that time, as a little guy, you know, especially
Yeah.
a lonely kid, because we had gone through the turmoil in the family, they seemed they were my best friend,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. That's cool.
So
That's really cool.
that's what I always remember. It was probably the compassion that people gave me, you know, when I needed it the most.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Maybe something that isn't as prevalent in this day and age as it once was.
No, I don't think so. And I think that's what's got me here today because unknowingly, you guys gave me the facts that what happened to me and where I was and what I did, you know, you guys captured all that here with your display and everything.
Yes.
And that's why I had to come back and and share this with you. And I hope you enjoy the book that I wrote, and or the no the history of what happened during that time for me. And
And you know what? It's a two-way street because let me explain to you. I've looked at this display. We're having this interview in front of the surf display here in a railroad museum. And I've looked at this over the years, and I never really understood the importance of surf and why it is that surf stayed around as an active depot as late as it did. I believe it was 1985 they closed it finally, right?
I think that's the depot closed, yeah.
Yeah.
But as far as the citizens, we had to 57. We had to get out.
Yeah. So there was a hole in the communications network right in that area. Apparently, it's in a little bit of a dip.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, the SP never saw any reason to upgrade the communications to that area.
Yeah.
So lo and behold, down here in this corner, we've got a picture of a guy who's more or less, and so he's on the right side in the locomotive, so that defines him as the engineer. And it's plain as day underneath there, that locomotive was shopped 184. You can see it.
Right.
It says 184 on there. And he's pulling the train order off the upper hoop. And then picture right above that, looking down, is the conductor in the caboose, and he's pulling a train order off the lower one.
Yeah.
So I didn't
Right,
know.
right.
Nobody told me. Or
Right.
maybe they did and I forgot. But when you come in here and you start telling me about this, you give me a
Right.
big packet of information. I take it home and study it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wow. So you being in here made me a better docent too. So I learned a lot
There we
from
go.
you. Yeah. So it's kind of a two-way
You
street.
never know.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Of course, we're a railroad museum, and
Right.
we're very interested in railroad history and things that happen around the railroads. So, as far as your work career and all that kind of stuff, that's probably not appropriate to put all that.
Right.
Although we
Right.
love hearing about it
Right.
because we did. But in particular, now there's a couple more things I'd like to ask you.
Sure.
Number one, your brother, his name was
His name was Ralph.
Ralph.
Yeah.
Ralph Nakano?
He went by that in school, but he's actually Ralph Visco.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And is he still alive?
No.
No? Do you have any pictures of him in railroad service, or even good pictures?
I have pictures in that booklet I gave you.
Okay.
There's pictures of the Galanos area where we played in the backyard together,
Yeah.
and we're in the house together. And there's a picture of my brother in there with his graduation picture.
How many years did he work for Southern Pacific?
Not that many years, simply because when we were in San Luis Obispo and Edna, they got rid of that section, that gang, and I think Guadalupe became a main center, Los Angeles and San Francisco, and all the little construction gangs were eliminated. So
Interesting, yeah.
about 58, I would say, it pretty much came to an end for us.
And so he didn't seek any other kind of employment with SP, maybe
No,
as
no.
a station,
No.
telegrapher, or nothing like that.
No, he moved to Santa Barbara, where my sister was,
Uh-huh.
and then the rest, my brother and his girlfriend, went there also.
Did he give you any kind of idea of what Southern Pacific was like to work for as a company?
No, but I know he enjoyed it. He
I'll be
enjoyed
darned.
it.
Yeah.
He liked to work and get tired, and it feels like you did something, that you did something for the day.
Well, absolutely
Yeah.
he did. And did he show you the tools that he used?
Oh, I used to bring them to him. I would sneak out, like always, and I would go down to the little work shed and load it up for the guys. I'd drag the pick handles out, the spikes, all that stuff. Not the logs, The logs, I left it to them, and they'd stack it all up on a little flat car
Yeah.
that got pulled by the little motorized car, and they'd go up and down the tracks fixing different areas.
I'll be
And
darned.
once
Now
in a
that
while,
motorized,
I'd run like crazy and jump on and until I got caught.
and oh, and then they threw you off too.
Well, they just said maybe next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you went from Surf to Lompoc to go to school in the freight train, did you jump on? How did this was not a regular stop because
No.
there was
There's
what?
trains at the depot, but they were long enough that they went, they stuck out by the school
Yeah.
on Laurel. And so I would just go underneath the train and find the one that's moving back to Surf, and I'd run over and grab that little metal ladder that's on the side of the boxcars,
Yeah.
pull myself up and sit on the little bar and ride all the way out there and jump off.
Off a moving train.
Yeah, well, because when it makes that turn into the Surf station,
Yeah.
it slows down because it's got a pretty good grade to go up to, and so they slowed it down. So
And you never got hurt doing this?
no, I watched the hobos do it. I learned a lot from them. What
Okay.
to eat, what not to eat, and stuff like that.
Interesting. On the subject of quote hobos, railroad itinerants, or
Right.
whatever you want to call
Right.
them. Okay. We had a presentation here, and it was what do you call that?
Hobo graffiti.
Yeah, yes. And but anyway, it was streamed, and we watched it. It was a live stream here at the museum. And finally, what they came down to was they didn't think that there was a lot of use of hobo signage that they would put out that would indicate to other hobos whether it was a good place to stay, whether there was food available, whether they were hostile to hobos, etc. And because we've seen things, all these different signs, and they're like, three vertical things and a line through it, or whatever it was. I don't remember. But would you care to comment on that, Mr. Nakano?
All I know is that when I came to Santa Barbara, I lived again next to the tracks, and I had heard through the grapevine of my little buddies that there was a place called Hobo Jungle in Santa Barbara, as you're leaving Santa Barbara going south, and so I just lit up, got on a bike and went out there, and found it. Today it's part of the child's estate and the zoo area and all that.
Yes.
And I believe
Okay.
a woman that came out to California from the Dust Bowl era
Yeah.
and did rather well. I'm not sure if she was the lady that made the parks and all that there in Santa Barbara, but she owned that property, and she herself said, this property is going to be devoted to the
No
to
kidding.
to the hobos. Yeah.
So
next to
she
the
let
track.
them squat basically when
Right.
they were in town on her
Right.
property.
Oh, it was a property that it was all bushes. It was just, nothing in particular. But the one thing I got to say for sure that the hobos were not like today's characters. They would work. They would come in and ask for, chopping wood, do anything, repairs, anything. And then they would accept the food that was
Interesting.
offered to them.
Yes.
And they had pride. They were guys that weren't misfits, but things in their life just didn't work out for them, either marriage, business, whatever. And then there were those that just were free spirited. I had a
Yes.
ball with them. Yeah, I
No
would
kidding.
sit-
So you would go down there and hang out with
I'd
them in
hang
their
with them.
camp. This is in South Santa Barbara.
Right.
Yeah.
And when I became 12, I took my birthday cake and a bike and a bottle of Manischewitz wine or something.
Where did you get that at 12 years old?
I was, I had special talents.
Okay.
And so I, you know, and I went down there and shared my birthday cake and gave him Manischewitz
And I bet they thought you were the
oh yeah,
the cat's
oh
meow after that.
I was, you know, well, three of them I knew because I had seen the guy with the scar in his hand. So I had to ask him if he ever fell off a train at night. And he goes, yeah. And I go, I'm the kid that found you. And he goes, and you had a little dog? I go, yeah. And your mom sewed my hand? I go, yeah. And then a couple of other guys go like, did she go by the name, what was it, Cookie? I go, Cuca, that's Ruth in Spanish. And he goes, yeah. And they go, where is she? I go, she died. So,
Yeah.
yeah. They got
But
quiet.
how many years, okay, how many years would you say separated when you found
Those
this?
incidents in, I would say approximately 5 years.
I'll be darned. So you'd grown up quite a bit by then.
Supposed to.
Yeah. And then, well, yeah. Well, you know, hopefully
Yeah.
none of us completely ever grew up. I agree with that. But did his hand work okay? And
Yeah. It would hurt him at certain times, and weather, of course, would
yeah.
be a factor.
And how the heck your mom avoided any kind of infection or anything? What'd you do? Pour like iodine in there? Or?
We had iodine, alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think he took a zip out of it while we were sewing them. Yeah.
Well, I can imagine that.
They
yeah.
were tough guys. They were tough guys.
Yeah.
I
And he
really
totally
liked
went
them.
along with it and let her do that.
Yeah, well, you know, when you're in pain, yeah, cut it off. You know, you do anything. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's an absolutely amazing
And
story.
so she, in that respect, she had a good heart.
Yeah. Now, was it your idea or your kind of feeling or sense at this time? Were these guys, if they came to a place and they liked it, would they stay there for an extended period, like years, or would they tend to move on?
They would move on.
They would.
Yeah. I used to have them in Santa Barbara. I lived like a half a block from the tracks on Delgado Street. And they would wander up to this little corner store, family store. And next door, I lived there, me and my batch of pals. But even then, 5th, 6th grade, I would tell them to come in, and we had lemons, oranges, apricots, berries, apples, green apples, in that yard, which I wouldn't eat. So they would come and pick it, and I gave it to them, you know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was always, I think what happens is that I felt lots of times we had to jump up to touch bottom. So there for the sake of, you know, that could be me. So
Sure.
I think I just levitated to them and said, I
That's
understand.
interesting.
Yeah.
Now, was there ever any like disasters on the railroad? Like, there was derailments or collisions or, anything like that?
Not during the times that I was around.
Yeah.
We would have fires that we'd get called out on to, watch the tracks that none of the ties got burned up or anything like that.
You would volunteer for that?
The Southern Pacific would get the gang together and say, go west, young man, or go south, north, or whatever.
And it was because of your brother.
Right.
Yeah. Did you get paid for that?
They did, yeah. They did, yeah.
But not you directly.
Well, no, because I was just a little twerp hanging around.
And they gave you a shovel and they said go out in this section and if the ties catch on fire, knock the fires down.
I would run and yell back to them if something was on fire around a curve or something.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
And so this whole place is burning, and you're a kid running down the middle of the tracks right through the fire and smoke.
I loved it. Yeah.
Did you know?
Yeah.
Did you know?
I used to do a lot of stuff that of course, what is it, the work ethics or whatever, the child labor laws weren't too strict back then.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That's true. Yeah, even when I was a kid, you
And
know, I
and and
remember.
and they liked me, so I got away with it
Can't
all.
imagine why.
Yeah. Oh, it was great when something got hit by the train, a cow or a deer or something. Oh, Lordy, I'd be out there hacking it up, putting it in my little wagon, and I'd take it to all the neighbors and share because we didn't have good refrigeration, so deers were always getting hit, you
No
know,
kidding.
or a stray cow would wander out there and get smacked. And so tough luck, bossy, you gotta go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's amazing. You
yeah,
know, I've never heard anybody relate that part of the
yeah.
story of being near a railroad, you know, as being
Hmm.
a source of food.
Yeah,
Um,
well, you know, we used to slaughter animals and stuff.
Now,
Uh,
at that time, you know, we've got, I don't know if you noticed out here, we have what's called a beat gondola, okay?
mhm.
And at one point, there were 1,000 approximately of those in the Southern Pacific system. And sugar beets were, hauling sugar beets
Oh,
were a huge part of Southern Pacific's freight.
yes.
And did you, by chance, ever, you know, because I've heard other people say this. They would wait till the sugar beet trains went by, and they would go out and collect them, and they
Right.
would cook them and eat them.
Yes.
Did you guys do that?
Uh, no, but we had ample opportunity because between Lompoc and Surf was a place I went by it just a couple of days ago when I was here. I went out to surf, and on my way out there, I was looking for the big warehouse, loading warehouse, where they used to have sugar beets, and they would load the sugar beets in these big uh, wagons or whatever they call, but they were train, and they would load the sugar beets on that. And so yeah, we're right in the middle of the sugar beet, um, where they'd load them up, grew
Yes.
them, load them up, and everything.
So they grew them around there around Surf.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, between
Interesting.
Surf and Lompoc,
Yeah. Maybe in that valley where the road goes
exactly
through. Yeah.
where the, well, the flower capital of the world. Yeah.
Ah,